What if a serial killer wanted fame more than they wanted to escape? What if they openly taunted the police and the public with coded letters, daring them to uncover their identity, and yet they were never caught? This isn't a plot from a Hollywood movie. This is the chilling, true story of the Zodiac Killer, a phantom who terrorized Northern California and left behind one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in the annals of criminal history. His name became synonymous with fear, and his identity remains a haunting question mark to this very day. Who was the Zodiac? Even now, decades later, we can only describe the shadow he cast. This unidentified serial murderer was most active during the late 1960s and early 1970s. In his own taunting communications, he boldly claimed to have killed as many as 37 people. While investigators could only officially link him to 7 attacks, resulting in 5 confirmed deaths, the true number could be higher. What set the Zodiac apart from other killers of his era wasn't just the brutality of his crimes, but his unprecedented and ravenous hunger for public attention. He didn't just want to kill, he wanted the world to know he was killing, and he wanted them to be terrified. He orchestrated a media circus with himself as the ringmaster, turning his reign of terror into a public spectacle. The string of canonical Zodiac attacks began in the winter of 1968 and continued through the fall of 1969, creating a palpable sense of dread across the Bay Area. The killer's method was chillingly consistent. He targeted young couples in secluded, isolated locations, places where people went for privacy, like lovers' lanes, quiet lakeside roads, and remote parks. He turned these places of intimacy and peace into scenes of unimaginable horror. One of the most terrifying details emerged from a survivor of an attack at Lake Berryessa in September 1969. The surviving victim, Brian Hartnell, described the assailant as a man wearing a bizarre and deeply unsettling executioner-style black hood. It covered his entire head, with dark glasses over the eye holes and a bib-like portion that extended down his chest, emblazoned with a stark, white, crossed circle symbol. This strange, almost occult-like insignia would soon become the Zodiac's infamous trademark, a symbol of random, inexplicable violence. But the murders were only one part of his campaign of terror. The other part was psychological, waged through the mail. Shortly after his crimes, the Zodiac began sending a series of cryptic and boastful letters to major newspapers, including the San Francisco Chronicle. These weren't just confessions, they were challenges. Inside the envelopes were not only details of the murders that only the killer could know, but also complex, hand-drawn ciphers. He demanded that the papers publish his codes on their front pages, threatening more violence if they refused. One of his most famous ciphers, the Z for 08, was famously cracked not by the FBI or seasoned cryptographers, but by an ordinary high school teacher and his wife, Donald and Betty Harden. The decoded message was profoundly disturbing, revealing the killer's twisted, narcissistic motive. He wrote about the thrill of the hunt and his belief that all the people he murdered would become his slaves in the afterlife. It was a terrifying glimpse into a mind devoid of empathy, one that viewed human beings as mere objects for his own gratification in this life and the next. Despite this breakthrough, other ciphers, like the notoriously difficult Z340 code, remained unsolved for over 50 years, adding to the killer's mystique and the public's frustration. Even after it was finally cracked in 2020, its rambling, incoherent message offered few clues to his identity, deepening the mystery instead of solving it. Over the years, the investigation into the Zodiac's identity became a sprawling, frustrating ordeal that consumed countless hours of police work. Dozens of individuals were investigated, and a few rose to the top of the suspect list, becoming near legendary figures in their own right. The most famous of these was Arthur Lee Allen, a former school teacher with a checkered past. Circumstantial evidence seemed to pile up against him. A witness placed him near one of the crime scenes. He owned a watch with the same Zodiac brand and symbol, and he allegedly made incriminating statements to friends. For many investigators and amateur sleuths, Allen was the man. Yet, for all the suspicion, there was never any definitive proof. His fingerprints didn't match those found at the scenes. His handwriting, while showing some similarities, was not a conclusive match. And crucially, DNA evidence recovered from the stamps and envelopes of the Zodiac's letters did not match Arthur Lee Allen's DNA. Other suspects have emerged over the decades, from newspaper editors to convicted criminals, each with their own tantalizing, but ultimately inconclusive web of connections to the case. In the end, every lead turned into a dead end. Every promising suspect was eventually cleared. The Zodiac Killer, it seemed, had vanished just as mysteriously, and suddenly as he had first appeared, leaving a trail of broken lives and unanswered questions. The active period of the Zodiac's confirmed crimes was relatively short, but his legacy is immense and enduring. He was never caught. There was no dramatic courtroom trial, no confession, no final moment of justice for his victims and their families. All that remains are the chilling letters, the unsolved ciphers, the haunting symbol, and the pervasive fear he instilled in an entire generation. The Zodiac case stands as a stark reminder that sometimes evil can slip through the cracks of justice. Was he a genius who was simply smarter than the police, meticulously planning every move to avoid capture? Or was he just incredibly lucky, benefiting from the limited forensic technology of the era and a series of fortunate breaks? The truth, it seems, is still out there, buried under layers of time, myth, and speculation, waiting to be uncovered. The Zodiac story has fascinated and horrified people for more than half a century. It has inspired countless books, documentaries, and even major motion pictures, most notably David Fincher's 2007 masterpiece, Zodiac. But beyond the pop culture phenomenon, the case has given rise to a massive community of amateur detectives and online sleuths. These dedicated individuals spend thousands of hours poring over old case files, analyzing handwriting, and attempting to crack the remaining codes, all in the hope of finally putting a name to the faceless killer. They have proposed new theories and identified new potential suspects, keeping the case alive in the public consciousness long after official investigations have gone cold. This collective effort demonstrates a powerful, shared human need for answers and for justice, even decades later. So, what can we learn from this dark chapter in American history? The Zodiac Killer case highlights the critical evolution of forensic science. In the 1960s, DNA analysis was the stuff of science fiction. Today, advances in genetic genealogy and DNA technology are solving cold cases that are even older than the Zodiac murders. There is still hope that a tiny trace of biological material left on a stamp or an envelope flap could one day be matched to a relative in a genealogy database, finally leading investigators to the killer's door. The story of the Zodiac is a testament to both the limits of law enforcement in a bygone era and the relentless, undying hope for resolution. It's a puzzle with a missing piece, and until that piece is found, the Zodiac will remain what he always wanted to be, a terrifying legend, an enigma forever etched in the history of crime. Thank you so much for watching. The Zodiac Killer's story is a complex and disturbing one, and it reminds us of the importance of vigilance and community. If you found this deep dive interesting, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more explorations into history's greatest mysteries. What are your theories on the Zodiac's identity? Let us know in the comments below. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next video.